So I'm going to be doing some more sculpting today of my Voynich critter and wanted to show you where I left off yesterday. So overnight I left the sculpture in this container and it's been wrapped in a wet cloth to just keep the clay at the right consistency to add more to it today. So actually first I will show you the model. So this is a scale model. As I'm sculpting, I've been comparing it to this to make sure that it's turning out to be the right shape and to make sure that it's going to fit in the space of the circular sculpture. So this is how far I got yesterday. I'm going to be refining it more, but I made the central part of the body and the beginning of the tail, the beginning of 3 of the legs, and so I need to add a 4th leg here, sort of reaching outwards, and I'm going to add the head and the neck. And I'm probably going to round the back a little bit, because if I compare it to this, it's backwards. If I compare it to this, it definitely has a much more rounded shape to the top of the back, so I'm going to be adding that back in. But the main thing to do at this point is to make sure that the clay is even, to make sure that there are no thin spots where the clay could be more fragile, and to make sure that this central form and the beginnings of the leg and tail are pointing in the direction that I want. And then I'm later going to add solid clay extensions to be the feet and the longer loop of the tail. If the whole thing was made out of solid clay, it would be very difficult for it to be fired. It might have air bubbles trapped in there. It might not dry very easily. And so this is completely hollow and closed. So at this point, it's almost like a balloon. It's kind of fragile, but it has a little bit of resistance from the air on the inside. So as long as the shape stays closed, I can kind of push the clay around without having the sculpture collapse on itself. So I'm making the 4th leg similarly to how I made the others. I'm going to cut or sort of pierce a little hole where I want the leg to go. And I'm going to check this again because this leg is different from the others. It's really reaching out farther than the other ones. So I think kind of like that. It's kind of at an angle coming out like that. Porcelain dries out very, very quickly, so I have to keep all the rest of it wet as I'm working on one other part. So I'm doing this technique where I put one of the wooden sticks on the inside to support it, and then with the outer stick I am just pulling the clay and blending it together. Sort of just trying to blend that clay on the inside. Even though you can't see it, it's going to help the construction to be stronger. Now this leg is obviously much too wide at this point, but it is pointing in the right direction. So I'm going to cut out a little bit of this side. So it's much narrower there. So there's our headless critter.